Welcome to the RJI Futures Lab, where we help you make your organization more innovative. I'm Ruben Stern. This week, the future of audience analytics. Measuring success online started with the basic page view, and then unique visitors, and then average time on site, and then things got a lot more complicated as the range of digital platforms grew. So what should a newsroom really be trying to measure these days? Futures Lab reporter Tatiana Daria set out to find the numbers that really matter now, and what we're likely to be measuring in the future. We'll start with a look at some new metrics that already are emerging.
While page views still lead the conversation on metrics, there are a few things we should and could be measuring right now.
I think that any publisher, what they should be measuring is how they acquire new visitors and then how they make them come back, how they build a loyal cadre of people who really care about what they do. So then we're looking at not just acquisition, but we're looking at propensity to return. And there's a few key metrics around that as well. The first one is recirculation, which is if you've gone to a page and you've read something on that page, like a piece of content, not a landing page, not a home page, if you've read a piece of content, watched a video, done something, and then decided that you want something more from that site, and you go on to another page. If you do that, that is a key leading indicator of propensity to return. Challenge with that is that whilst that can happen quite a lot on desktop, it's very, very rare on mobile.
So our first effort at it is looking at an audience member as a new reader, never come to the site before, an occasional reader, someone that comes maybe once a week or so, a frequent reader a couple times a week, and then the most loyal reader would be someone that comes every single day back to a site. And we're looking at that as buckets of people and identifying maybe patterns among those people. So are they, again, reading a certain author? Are they reading in a certain section? Are more loyal people coming from certain social media sites? Are they sharing more?
For BuzzFeed's Jane Kelly, building standards around numbers will bring more value.
So you want to be able to measure loyalty and you want to be able to measure impact. But you can't go out right now and say, what is the loyalty metric? What is the relevance metric? What is the impact metric? It's an increasingly hard thing to do because we see the distribution platforms change. 75% of our traffic comes from social sources. And so kind of being able to understand how are we going to measure loyalty and engagement? Is it just going to be loyalty engagement on BuzzFeed? Is it going to be loyalty engagement on Facebook and BuzzFeed? Right now at BuzzFeed, what we tend to focus on is interactions, and mostly social interactions. So a lot of times with BuzzFeed, we talk about at the base we focus on viral traffic. So even just looking if a main metric is page views, it's page views dependent upon what the referrer is. So starting with viral traffic is the main thing. And then another thing that we look at is shares. So how many people have shared our content.
BuzzFeed is trying to measure traffic that comes from all the interactions on different social media platforms and extract value from the data. For the Futures Lab, this is Tatiana Daria.
Measuring social interactions has also been part of the work of the Research and Development Lab at the New York Times. The group has developed several new tools to visualize how users interact with content.
The R&D labs at the Times developed Project Cascade to analyze how content produced by the Times is resonating on Twitter. Each of the circles represents a point in time, every pink dot is a tweet, and every yellow dot is a click tied to the tweet.
If we feel something is an important story to be shared on Twitter, and we shared it at a certain point in time, and it got the kind of impact, we can baseline off of that and track that behavior and see if that behavior can work for us again.
Stream Tools is an open-source toolkit developed by the labs to process streams of data which can be combined to analyze real-time events on the New York Times website.
So if people are scrolling down to a certain point and then leaving the page, if people are clicking on certain articles more than the other articles, we're able to expose that data and process it.
At the Times, the priority is getting to know audiences better.
Metrics are one way to understand our audiences, but there are a million ways to do it. It has to be a holistic enterprise, not just observing their behaviors in terms of the entirety of what we can understand from their behavior, but marrying that with actually talking to readers and surveying them and reaching out to them and trying to decide, for a given piece of content, who is that audience? Are they responding as much as we'd like them?
The analytics team is embedded in the newsroom and delivers daily updates on audience development.
One of the things that we put a lot of thought in is coming up with a success metric that makes sense for an article that may not have mass appeal, right? And the way in which we're starting to think about that is, can we model out for any given article which of our readers will be most interested in that article? And rather than saying the success is whether it gets 1 million visits or 2 million visits, can we say, of the people who were interested in a given article, did they find it, did they read it, did they love it, did they share it? And that's really a different way of thinking for our newsroom, because we're used to thinking of our audience as a monolithic entity in print. We're very good at that. We understand our print audience really, really well, and it makes for a compelling product. But online, I think the audiences are more fragmented. It's possible to think about audience segments of readers who are interested in certain types of things. Understanding those segments and communicating that back to the desks, I think, is really has a lot of potential for helping us think about how to serve those audiences better.
For the Futures Lab, this is Tatiana Daria.
When it comes to the metrics of the future, the people we spoke with predict we might soon see measurement even more closely related to specific organizational goals.
The big change that I'm starting to see now, and the change that I think will be much, much more widespread 2 years from now, 5 years now, is instead of looking at the total amount of clicks that we get, the total amount of page views or unique visitors, we're looking at the total amount of attention that we get. So if 10 people spend 2 minutes, I've got 20 minutes of total attention. And that is something that people like the BBC are already doing, it's people like ESPN are already doing. And from that, you're starting to see much, much more interesting metrics around things that actually matter. It shows you how much of the most scarce thing in the world, people's time, you've been able to capture. It's the thing that brands most want for advertising purposes. It's also, as we said before, one of the key leading indicators for their propensity to return, and also nicely balances out short form content that may get a lot of people but for not much time, and long form content that may get fewer people but they stay for longer.
I think, in analytics, we understand a lot about what people are, what's going on at people's fingertips, but we know absolutely nothing about what's going on in the rest of their body unless we actually talk to them. So I think it's really possible to come up with some really fascinating hypotheses and questions out of doing behavioral analytics. And in some cases with testing, you can come up with some really good answers too. But in terms of insights about our audience, to do that without actually, talking to them, I think it's very hard to see the complete picture.
The more we can pay attention to what people are talking about, then an internal metric would be what percentage of the stories we assigned came because we had evidence that they were valuable to our community. That's the kind of thing that isn't going to show up in Google Analytics. But in terms of what we measure about what we do, if one of the things that's important to you is reflecting the information needs of your community, then you have to set up a system for deciding what those needs are and then track whether you are increasing the percentage of what you did that was based on that. I would like an analytics service that's so connected to my CMS that I can have fields for all kinds of things. I would like to enter in a CMS where story ideas came from, so that we could track how many came from readers or how many came from a call to the newsroom or how many came from a press release or something, and track that over time, how it performs and how many people read it. I would like analytics that can know more about what else people do on the internet so that we can see how we compare and how usership of our website compares to others. I would like analytics services that do a better job of pulling together how our content is spread around the internet in different ways, not just, we have this for social and this for analytics on our website.
And I think kind of the next step in measuring in the future is going to be able to measure kind of the activity and travel of people, and measuring the activity and travel of content, and measuring the activity and travel of media. So just building tools that allow you to look a little bit more about how something lives on, not just on your site, but how something lives and acts on the internet. And from there, you can do a lot. Then we can deliver a lot more once that person comes to our site.
Along with this video, you'll find links to additional discussion, including a Q&A with Chartbeat CEO Tony Hale. And that's it for this report from the RJI Futures Lab. I'm Ruben Stern. We'll see you in the future.